I do what I do.
Hey, what's up? What's up? It's Uncle D. What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? Y'all check out these videos and I will be right back. Um, Here we go.
How fucking delusional you gotta be trying to destiny swap with the same people your ancestors literally helped sell. Now, African Union gonna end up fucking around and finding out we are not your property. The fuck is wrong with you? So apparently Africa and the African Union this 2025 told America that they are leading the cause for reparations for African countries and people affected by slavery. They found out that African Americans have 1.7 trillion in spending power. The African Union is working with American officials to both colonize the African American culture, but also to receive reparations. Do you know how insane you have to be to think that you are entitled to some money that does not historically belong to you? Knowing good and goddamn well it had nothing to do with you. But the reparations that this country owes us is because of what has been done to us here.
Africa. Wanna fight? Y'all wanna fight? What the fuck is this talking about? Y'all want our reparations too if we get them. How the fuck you feel like you entitled to our reparations, bitch? Come on now, Africa, y'all, come on. Everybody from over there, man, let's fight. I don't want to fucking fight. We got to get this shit off our chest. You should have never fucking sold us in the first fucking place. So we want to fight. We want to fight, all us, everybody. Everybody from America want to fight. Fuck it. Get it off your chest. Fuck it.
Baby, whether you feel like your ancestors came over here through the Atlantic slave trade or they migrated here on their own accord, let me tell you, it is time for us to tap into our business. Africans is working with American leadership to tap into the black reparations. Yeah, the money that belongs to us, everything that belongs to us, they are saying how they were affected 400 plus years later, and now you're saying that you're the fuck affected by the Atlantic slave trade because you came over here, you got your ass whipped, you got beat, you got mentally destroyed, emotionally destroyed, you got all of that, so now you think that you're owed something? Bitch, you're owed nothing. But what you do owe is an apology to black Americans. See, you know, I ignored the Essence Festival thing, not my monkey, not my circus. But now that I'm looking around, I'm like, oh, that's what they're doing. They're trying to destiny swap. They're coming over here. They're taking off their attire. They're adapting to our attire. They're using our slang. They're eating our food. We have no culture, they say, but yet when they come here, they are no longer looking like an African on American soil. They're very much looking like an American. But yet we have no culture, so what are you doing? What are you eating? What are you wearing? What are you listening to? What the fuck are you engaging in? If we have no culture, you're engaging in black culture because you're damn sure not engaging in white culture. You're damn sure not doing that. So you think that something is owed to you? Baby, the way that we need to throw the fuck hands, and and the only reason I say throw the fuck hands because how dare you? How dare you? Nah. Throw the fuck hands. Like, I really feel like it needs to be some hands thrown, and I really feel like we need to handle them and let them know, take your ass back the fuck home. It ain't shit over here belong to you.
Hey, what's up, beautiful people? This is Dennis Spurling. Welcome to the Dennis Spurling podcast. I know you all are not used to seeing me in my backyard, but you know, sometimes there's a need for a change of scenery, and since we're enjoying this beautiful weather, I wanted to go ahead and partake in it while we have this very important discussion. Now, today I have some reaction videos, or should I say, these are reaction videos to people learning that African nations are now trying to, how should I say, appropriate foundational black American reparations. In other words, the same people that sold us into slavery to European merchants who simply waited on the coast or made a short walk off of their slave ships into pens and quarrels, filled with Africans, our ancestors. They're trying to convince them that they should be compensated for our theft or sale when they're the ones that sold us. Some for as little as a hog's head full of rum. And so in a situation like that, I think we need to address it. But the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to let you check out a couple of these videos, and I'll be right back. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And here we
So down in South Florida, the black immigrants be calling the black Americans Yanks and Yayas. And they use these terminologies as a way to separate themselves from us. And I only think it's fair that we come up with a term to make sure we separate ourselves from them, especially when they get to talking like this. So a term that I came up with that I feel like fits some of these black immigrants, especially the ones that talk like this, the best is cuckoo. Y'all ever heard of a cuckoo bird? Cuckoo birds are birds that lay their eggs in other birds' nests, especially when that original bird is not home. And that original bird take care of the cuckoo bird babies as if it's one of his own, alongside its original eggs, original birds. And the cuckoo birds are very hostile. They take up all the resources. They tend to kick the original birds out the nest. Talking about when cuckoo birds hatch, they're highly disrespectful to the original birds of that nest. And the whole thing about it is these are not independent birds. They depend heavily on other birds from other lineage and outside the family, which is crazy. And it reminds me of a particular group of people. So when I see black immigrants talk crazy like this, I can't help but think of the cuckoo bird. Because you're here in someone else's home and somebody else's nest, and you're trying to undermine our achievements as if you built something here. A lot of y'all might have individual success, but you haven't built anything. We built the foundation as black Americans, especially down in Florida. See what I'm saying? And on top of that, you like to be in my culture. You like to rap like me, talk like me, act like me, dress like me, and then talk crazy. You a cuckoo bird.
Man, what's going on, y'all? How y'all doing? How y'all doing? Check this out. I've been watching a lot of these reparations hearings, right? And it's two things that irk my spirit. But the second one don't really irk me the most, but the first one do. And the first one is these Pan-Africans. You'll get these Pan-Africans, because this is how I set up if y'all haven't seen it. So you'll have like a commission, right? That's listening to the people, you know, on why we should get reparations and things like that. So they're going to try to pass out to the legislators so they can see if it get passed, which it won't get passed because you can't do it race-based. And that's how they tricking a lot of people. Like, hey, we black, we should get it. You can't get it like this. So that's number one. But anyway, so you have different people that come and speak. And a lot of these are black Americans too. Let me say this. A lot of these people that are Pan-African are black Americans, but they get up here and just sabotage the whole thing. One thing they'll do, they get up there and say, hey, our people from the diaspora should get some too. They are brothers and sisters, so they throw that out there. Then another person might come up there, and he gonna start reciting poems. Like these people will get at a reparations hearing where people are trying to listen, that's on this commission board, they're trying to help us get some type of financial gain, and these damn Pan-Africans will get up there and start reciting a poem. A poem that they wrote, they ain't got nothing to do with the money. They ain't saying like, hey, we should get this for this, because if you could trace, they ain't talking about none of that. These Pan-Africans are time wasters. I promise they are. And we all know the tellers. I seen a lot of tellers come up there and speak on like how, well, we should get it too because we experience racism and you know, we be oppressed here. Okay, cool, y'all do. But y'all, that was y'all choice to come here. Y'all immigrated here. Mike, whatever it is, you immigrated here. We been here. Your grandparents ain't come from this land. Your grandparents come from over there somewhere. Your grandparents ain't got nothing to do with nothing on what we built, what we fought for, and what we bled for here. But them Pan-Africans, though, they is a problem, especially them old ones. Them old Pan-Africans are just a waste of time. We ain't gonna never get nothing if they up there. Anytime I see somebody with a kente cloth on, or them garbs they be wearing, them brown and green and red garbs they be wearing with the hat, It's done. It's over for me, yo. It is over for me. As much as I go at the Democrats, I think Pan-Africans are worse than some of these Democrats that fake like they for you, but they really for the immigrants. These Pan-Africans are dangerous, bro. They are dangerous. I'm watching this guy. This is something important. Then you got other black people come up there. They talking about social issues. Nigga, forget yourself. You need to talk to social services what's going on in your apartments and stuff like that. You need to talk to social service about why your kid getting... This ain't got nothing to do with reparations. But shout out to the black people that stood on business, boy. It was a lot of black people stood on business. And the black people that stood on business, a lot of them people didn't want to hear that. They was upset up there. Shout out to New York, my Harlem people. But they was upset up there. They didn't like what the FBAs had to say. They didn't like what the Sulani people had to say. They didn't like that. They did not like that. And shout out to my black Americans that stood on business that day. And this is another thing I want to say before I go. Now, I'm going to do that on another video.
Keeping things into perspective, everybody who you see on the front line talking about reparations or dealing with the GOV and reparations commissions, and one, a lot of those PPL are cosplaying BLACK Americans. And then two, all of the true children of the Most High, the ones who know they're the real Jews, children of Israel, right? The GOV not dealing with them, not dealing with us, not dealing with us at all, right? So we're not even gonna even get the... If you understand this truth, we're not even going to even ever remotely even get the chance to be up in front of a commission for reparations. It's not going to fucking happen. So I know a lot of these people sell good, right? I know it seems like they're doing the work, but like I said before, many of them are actually cosplaying. They're not even BLACK Americans. And they're of this world. The Most High is not dealing with people of this world. The true remnant ain't going in front of no fucking commission talking about no reparations. You know why? Because we already know they're not going to give a shit. We already know that our reparations is going to be eternal rulership, eternal authority, and eternal power in the Black America, CAN, MAN's kingdom, the righteous patriarchy. We already know this shit. So be careful with these PPL, man. We are living in their END. We're living in their last DAYS. I know they sound good, and a lot of times they'll put up a woman, right, to make it seem like, oh, the woman is the lead, the woman has to speak for them, because apparently the MAN can't do it, their MAN can't do it, so we have to put they put a woman in front to make sure, yeah, she has to lead the charge. Bro, when you got when the Father says a remnant, because everything they do with there is an agenda. Every single last thing they do. And it's only a remnant that'll be able to see through their agenda, through it, without even them telling us anything. Because our Father's telling us. The Holy Spirit, our Mother's telling us. You know what I'm saying? A remnant. So I'm out there, yeah, to reparate. And a sister just sent me a video, salute to her. Right? These people are literally like they're freaking setting up all type of Afra commissions, and now we're all Afra, so the Afra could come in and try to, under the guise of Afra American, to get repra. Bro, they, like I've been saying, the Afra, they deal with us like the other Psalms 83, like the other Gentiles. They only deal with us when they can benefit. I promise you. Outside of benefiting from BLACK Americans, they don't attach any attach any value to us. Not intellectually, not anything. Nothing. This is what it is. But it's okay. They chose the white T, B-O-Y, they chose Satan, they chose, this was their kingdom. and now they have a huge debt to collect, a huge debt to pay. Simple. Well, praise to the Most High.
The African Union has the AU 6th region, which is basically trying to, drive how, using our leverage of Africans or Nigerians, well, Africa in this case, and diaspora, and leveraging the strength of these people, because there's a huge number of Africans that are not at home, that are in diaspora, and basically creating an initiative that helps, us bring that concerted effort back home and ensure that we're also getting the dividends of the people that are outside and the learnings that they have. For EFINA, in terms of that kind of partnership, I think it would just probably be getting insights as well from those sort of people. They could also then contribute through funding supports. EFINA is funded by Gates Foundation at the moment. We are open to other funding sources. And as you see what's going on in the world right now, where there's a lot of, aid withdrawal from the States, there's an increasing clamor for Africa to start to self-fund and do for itself. So maybe this is the beginning of an even more intense mobilization of Africans in diaspora to drive that change that we want to see, leveraging on their passion and their genuine interest in developing the continent.
All right, family. So check this out. This is an article on the Africa Report, and this is what it's labeled as. It's labeled as the Diaspora Initiative looks to tap into the $1.7 trillion African American purse. Let's get into this, because off the top, that sounds crazy. So let's dive in, right? African American buying power could reach $1.7 trillion by 2030. Projects the McKinsey Institute for Black Economic Mobility, but only a tiny fraction of it is currently ending up in Africa. So the first two sentences is telling you that their initiative is to tap in to the foundational Black American spending power, and currently it's about $1 trillion, and it's projected to be 1.7 trillion by 2030, and the Africans want some. So with the African Union and Joe Biden's administration both promoting the diaspora as a key potential source of funding for the continent, that's crazy. I told y'all about these Democrats. I'm gonna read that again. Joe Biden administration and the African Union are both promoting the diaspora as a key potential source of funding for the continent. It's over. We not supporting Essence. I'm not supporting nothing. I'm not buying nothing, because Black people already know what immigrants come here to do, right? We know that all immigrants come here to drain us of all our resources. And this is crazy that our African brothers and sisters are targeting us. A few dozen investors and U.S. government officials attended the lunch at the South African Embassy in Washington, D.C. The half-day event was a precursor to a 3-day summit focused on the 16-member Southern African Development Community, scheduled to take place from March 6th to March 8th in Washington. This is an opportunity for us to take the diaspora's wealth and redirect it to include the continent. Africa, you canceled.
To Black. So the reason they are only paying attention to Black America is because Black America has the money. Okay? Black America has the money. If only the racially black people on earth, Black America would be at the top as far as the money. Okay? We would be the wealthiest. So that is why they said that Black America is the one that they want to go to try and extract some wealth from, through us buying goods and things of that nature, and trying to, they call it tap into the $1.7 trillion buying power of Black America. I guess only the people online think we all broke. Cause I could have sworn everybody thought we was broke. All of us broke down. But apparently, the politicians and stuff know otherwise. But okay, so let me break it down to you. Our buying power, Black America, that's why I love saying Black America, because we are our own country, basically, right? So Black America, our buying power is equal to Canada, Australia. It's that big. Okay, it's that big. So we are literally, if we had our own, like, if we, boom, we are our own country within a country, basically. And you see all those little small countries in Europe, yeah, we way bigger buying power, okay, than those smaller countries in Europe. So like, and being that we are, if you look right here, being that we are only 50 million people, we would be like upper class still. If it was just us alone, we would still have enough to sustain ourselves by ourselves. Like, period. Okay? So the governments know this. So let's look at what it would actually mean for us, right? Our 50 million, or for some people, this is an estimate. Okay? It's 40 something million. I'm saying 50 million. But because people get real petty on this thing. So, but yeah, let's see what that would mean for us, right? It would mean this. All by ourselves, we'd be good. Like, we would be good. And that's awesome, right? Except we're not all by ourselves, right? We have to fight against. And just like right now, like, people trying to pull our money this way and pull our money that way and pull our money. But Black America moves in different places that will harm us. If we would move, if let's say if Black America all got it, we would have to move to the exact same place. Okay? In order for it to benefit us. Okay? So we just spread all out. That's not a good thing. Not for the buying power.
You know, this whole African Union situation is exposing the Democratic Party more. And I'm here for it. I have been saying on my page nonstop, the Democrat Party are playing us Black people. They've been doing it for years and they still doing it. Did y'all know that y'all boy, Joe Biden, was about to give over $1 billion to Africa for what? Reparations. The one thing that Jasmine Crockett was talking about, the one thing that Roland Martin, who else? What's that other dude? Al Sharpton, all those Black Democrats keep talking about, oh, we about to do reparations. Even Jasmine Crockett talked about with the whole, like, running for her district area, talking about something, I'm leaning towards the Black faith, Black people, my people to vote me back in, blah, 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 yada, yada. But ain't done nothing for her daggone district. Y'all, the Democrat Party does not care about Black people. I cannot stress this enough. I don't know what's going to get through, like, the majority of you all heads. I'm not saying go right, but no Black person, and I stand by this statement, no Black person should be a part of that demon rat party, especially when you call yourself a Christian. But for those who ain't Christian, just do we respect ourselves or not? We should not be aligned to a party that only cares about us when it comes to votes, but yet leave us with scraps. I mean, look at the towns and the cities that voted blue. They don't care about people. They do not care about people, and they definitely don't care about Blacks. Y'all gonna learn. Y'all gonna learn. I cannot stress this enough, and I'm gonna keep on talking about it because y'all, like, bruh, like, we need to be free, bro, like, for real. All these, like, elites be trying to get us, like, what's the word? Glued in, sucked into TV, and they over there saying things like, oh, we struggling, they multi-millionaires. Come on now, we're not falling for the bait. Don't fall for the bait. Don't fall for the Tyler Perrys. Don't fall for the Whoopi Goldbergs. Don't fall for the Oprah Winfrey. They are multi-millionaires, multi-billionaires. Talk about something. They struggling. What they struggling with? They're not an average working class citizen here. We are. They lean on our votes. They lean on us. And I'm over us being played. Y'all should be over it too. And I'm going to keep on saying it. I don't care. Y'all call me White Coon, Auntie Tom. I don't give a squat. Y'all going to hear the truth. Them Democrats don't care about us. Y'all going to learn one way or another. This African Union is not opener, because guess who's aligned with that? You guessed it, the Demon Rat Party.
So we have a real bone to pick. The Black American community has a real bone to pick with these diasporic individuals who think that they have a say-so, or they're given a green light by certain politicians that don't represent us to siphon our purchasing power out of our communities without putting any programs back in, without providing to the community, without offering anything to the community, right? To basically fund their economy and fix shit that they got going on over there without our say-so. And we see what y'all doing, and y'all not getting away with that shit, and you're gonna have to do proper business over here, right? We're not doing the shit that the Chinaman and the Frenchman and the Englishman do over in your country, in your continent, where you let them finesse you out of 360 deals and shit like that and take all your resources. You're not.
Brazil, Canada. Y'all, we have a lot of money. So, the African Union adding Black or African Americans as their 6th region gives them a big economical boost and backing to request money from different investors to grow Africa.
To be a motherfucking rant, so hold on. Africans, come to the motherfucking front. There is no way in hell y'all gonna sit y'all ass at any kind of council, any kind of union, any kind of convention and state that y'all deserve reparations. Have y'all lost y'all entire fucking minds? You are not finna co-op anything that Black people in America, descendants of slavery, descendants of chattel slavery, have gone through. The only motherfuckers that's gonna get goddamn reparations is us. Matter of fact, y'all need to be paying us reparations for actually selling us off and being part of that shit. I really think y'all off y'all fucking rockers. Just because you came to America does not mean you deserve reparations. Y'all sounding like white folks at this goddamn point. I swear Black folks can't have shit. And I mean African Americans, not fucking Africans. The disrespect, the level of disrespect that y'all have for us and what our ancestors have gone through is baffling. You don't deserve reparations. If your ass was born in Africa and you came here for a better life due to us getting our civil rights and opening the door for us, you don't deserve shit. You got what you needed. You got a fucking green card. You got a visa. You brought your family over here. Good for you. But that's where the fuck the bus stops at. Try that shit if y'all want to. Y'all gonna really see some fucking division. Y'all need to start figuring out how y'all gonna pay African Americans reparations right along with white folks in this country. That's what y'all asses need to do. Y'all done ran up my goddamn blood pressure.
Touched our pulse. Still what? System failures and struggle? We come with customs, creativity, and the same resources your country's been surviving on since they touched our coast. Y'all are still digging into Africa for diamonds, coal, iron, and your favorite chocolate, but y'all calling us the thieves. How ironic. If anything, we're in the right to say y'all are the cosplayers.
Delusion!
You guys have
This lady from Congo is utterly insane. She initially made a video saying that she's not a cosplayer, she's just assimilating. What does assimilation, what does that mean? And how are you assimilating? Who are people going to identify you with? You're not wearing your traditional garb. You're not speaking in your traditional language, native tongue, whatever you want to call it. Why aren't you speaking with a London accent? To conflate Black American people to the government, the white government, is diabolical, is disingenuous, and it's extremely intentional. Shouts out to Kanataway. You know what you're doing. You come over here and say, we don't have culture. You think America has no natural resources? Are you insane? It's the delusion for me. Why are you here? I'm going to say it. I don't give a fuck. This is pissing me off. And you all love to call me xenophobic and say I'm divisive. I am always only ever reacting and responding to blatant disrespect. I would never take my beautiful ass over to another country, assimilate, to be like the native people, the people that's actually there,
and then talk shit about them. Why are you here, sweetheart? A broken system? How are you surviving in a broken system? Who helped to create a system in which you could even assimilate to with your black ass? Other black ass people that hail from America. How are you even able to successfully migrate here? It's because of us, sweetheart. It's because of our ancestors. We paved the way. Imagine me. I would never want to take off my black Americanness. I don't give a fuck where I go in the world, bitch. Couldn't nobody pay me to not be me. I'm not assimilating to shit. That's how proud I am of who I am and where I come from and my lineage. I don't give a fuck where bitch, take me to Mars. I'm still gonna be this beautiful melanin rich chick from Brooklyn, motherfucking New York. Assimilate? Who you assimilating to? Y'all hate us so fucking bad. Y'all never want to give us credit, and y'all talk shit thinking that you're so much better while being here. Why are you here? Go home. It is so disrespectful. I would never go to somebody's house, somebody's homeland, and talk shit about the people that I'm assimilating. What in the fucking Twilight Zone? What in the X-Files? So we cosplaying Africans? Bitch, I don't wear... All right, I'm gonna go because I don't want... I'm trying not to be disrespectful. This is not about all African people. This is not about all immigrants. These are... This is specifically to the ones that disrespect us, but yet you're here with us. That is fucking bizarre. You're a weirdo, sis. Spread love is the Brooklyn way.
The African Union, right, has this thing, 2025 year of reparations. I'll click on it. Now, mind you, keep in mind, we counted about 70, 80 billion the other night. 2025 year reparations. Let's read this. This is Africa. AU theme of the year 2025, theme Justice for Africans and People of African Descent through Reparations. The African Union has designated 2025 as a year of justice for Africans and people of African descent through reparations. This initiative underscores the AU's commitment to addressing historic injustices, including the transatlantic slave trade, colonialism, apartheid, and genocide. It builds on decades of advocacy, collaboration, aiming to foster unity and establish mechanisms of reparatory justice on a global scale. And I'm like, wow, they didn't go wait a minute, because how? What you didn't? That's not you. That's not your story, right? Y'all said that was the Negroes in America who was on the boats, right? But then guys, I just kept meddling through this website. I saw so much, including the fact that Africa, unbeknownst to us, please share this live, guys. And look what comes up. Africa made us their 6th region. Did you know that? Africa made the Negroes in America, the darkies, the black people, the black Americans, their 6th region. They made us a state within their diaspora. So they have a state outside of Africa, and it includes us. Who the fuck told them to do that? I have no clue. Why I'm just not finding this out? I don't know why all these African diaspora channels ain't never pointed this out. I have no clue. Please click like in here. Please share the video, because this is wild. They were able to bring us inside of their group. Because mind you, this African Union has been around since 1963. And they have never been able to get this amount of money in this period of time, right? And their whole thing was, African Union, let's go back. They're trying to change how the world sees them, right? And so then some smart nigga over in Africa said, this is how we can change it. Let's bring the black Americans in and make them our sixth region. I was looking for their, let me go to their, which page is this about? Is who we are. African states. If they have 55 states, then we're the 56. There's something crazy like that. No, I'm looking for the part. It's a part on here where they're explaining how they don't want the world to view them as people who are not capable of doing business, people who are not capable of trade, people who don't have enough money going into their bank accounts. They explain all of this on their site, right? And then you go into the part of the site where they made us the 6th region. One people, one voice, one Africa, diaspora of African descent in America, people of African descent in America. And this is how they have, look at this. Our mission is to galvanize, mobilize, structure, and empower the people of African descent in America, as well as reconnecting them to the motherland. One voice, one people, one Africa. The African Union has invited the African diaspora to bring voting members of the AU to that together African people who can move together towards the unification of the African continent into a reality called the Union of African States, or United States of Africa, in the near future. But this is supposed to be us, right? They took our whole identity, is what I'm telling y'all. They took our whole identity, using it for their benefit. Look at this shit, man. Look at this. Look at this. Who told them to do this? Who gave them permission to do this? Who the fuck gave them permission to do this? What? Yeah, this is wild. This is crazy. This is so crazy, bro. I swear. This shit, I said, let me go live. I wasn't even gonna go live today. I said, let me get somebody else eyes on this. This was not on my bingo card. This was not on my bingo card. These fucking orange-eyed put us in it. Use us for marketing. And then start brokering deals all over the place. We don't even know we involved in this shit at all. We don't even know. Like, we're involved in their whole role. Like, this website, how they're explaining how they want to be the leaders in culture and all of that. And then they're sitting here. Let me show y'all.
Next order of priority is citizenship, starting with the Afro-descendants from the 6th region who have already returned to various countries. At the AU ECOSOC pre-summit ahead of last February's 38th Ordinary Summit of the Heads of State in Addis Ababa, the State of the African Diaspora Ambassador and President of the Ethiopian World Federation Local in Shashamane, Ms. Jasmine Rowe, informed the summit of the deplorable and inexcusable fact that after 80 years, some Rastafarians on the land granted by Emperor Haile Selassie still do not have citizenship. This and many other problems plague repatriates in many AU member states. For this reason, I am now submitting to the Commission and AU ECOSOC reports prepared by Ambassador Jasmine Rowe, by Obemfo Obadeli Bakari Kambon, PhD of the Abibi Fahodi Think Tank Consortium in Ghana.
All right. So welcome back to the broadcast. We got a chance to look at a couple of videos. There are plenty more to see, but what I want to do is try to help put this in context. Now, for about half a decade now, I have been researching the question of reparations, and it started because one of my subscribers many years back asked me to give my opinion on reparations, and what I found was a lot of things. If the question is, who owes foundational Black Americans reparations, we would assume it would be the people who enslaved us, right? And that's an easy. We can look at the people in the, or at least so I thought it was an easy question to answer. We could look at the people in the United States, or what the precursor to the United States, and at that time, as slavery started in 1619, when the first African indentured servants, quote unquote, were brought to Jamestown, Virginia, we would assume it's the English, right? Because at that time, the United States was the territory of what? Great Britain. Okay, well, let's fast forward to 1776. Slavery persisted. And from 1776, those people who had slaves, whether they be in the North or the South, were American citizens. Now, here's the thing. Here's where it gets really sticky. Oftentimes, African Americans or foundational black Americans purchased slaves, and they did so for various reasons. Many purchased slaves because they wanted to save their relatives from being sold off to some stranger. But the truth is there were a lot of people who did it because it was a commercial business and they wanted to profit from slavery just like their white counterparts. Nevertheless, slavery was typically a European institution. It was a white institution, and the predominant number of people who owned slaves overall in the country at the time were white. But here's the thing we have to ask ourselves, was slavery legal? Because see, at that time, from 1619 all the way up until the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, slavery was legal. But here's the catch. It was made illegal by Abraham Lincoln in the states that had seceded from the Union. So technically slavery was still legal in the states that hadn't seceded. So in the border states. So what does that mean? That means it was illegal, it wasn't illegal. And it wasn't until 1865 at the end of the Civil War when slavery was totally abolished and the 13th Amendment made enslaving people illegal, but for if they're incarcerated. So there's a lot of information that goes into that. Now, a definitive line that I can draw for you is that in 1806, or really 1807, the international slave trade was outlawed. And so any slaves who were brought from the west coast of Africa to the Americas, be they North, South, or Central America or the Caribbean, was illegal. Nevertheless, there was incidents like the Clotilda and the Wanderer, where people actually got together and went to the west coast of Africa, purchased slaves from those kings and chieftains, and then brought them to this country. There's a big story about that, the Clotilda. It ended up in Alabama. There was two men who had a bet, two guys out of New Orleans. There was a bet that they could beat the military and the Navy ships, and they could actually bring slaves back to the United States, which is what they did. It was successful at it. They brought it back. The name of the ship was the Clotilda. It was in 1859, and this is right before the Civil War had happened. And of course, it was illegal at the time because in 1807, the United States outlawed the importation of slavery. But what I'm trying to get to is when I began to dig into the question of reparations, I learned and I found, and I'm coming from the perspective of a trial lawyer, that you can't hold the buyer responsible, and that would have been the Europeans, without holding the sellers responsible. And when I'm talking about the sellers, I'm talking about those dozens and dozens of slave purchasing pens all along the west coast of Africa, from Sierra Leone all the way down to Ghana, all the way down to the Congo. And these African nations actively participated in slavery. Now see, here's the thing. A lot of you are saying, the first thing you're going to say is they didn't know what they were doing. And I would think that's foolish, because slavery did not commence with the transatlantic slave trade. For 1,600 years prior to the beginning of the transatlantic slave trade, Africans were selling other Africans on the sub-Saharan or the Saharan slave trade. So they knew the horrors of slavery. In addition to that, as far as the direct connection with the Americas, there were Africans who participated in the slave trade who themselves were enslaved, purchased their freedom or managed to get free, and then they themselves participated in the slave trade. This is a nefarious business venture that persisted for over 500 years. And African leadership knew. When we talk about the king of the Congo, this man was educated in Portugal. He even took on a Portuguese name. He was educated at one of their best universities, and they actually had deals with these different European nations for the exportation of slaves. They benefited from it. There's documentation showing that these African nations, whether they be a chieftain or a kingdom or a queendom benefited from. The whole notion of this Dahomey tribe thing, right, was that they were fighting to keep their slaves. This is the whole point. They would initiate wars, they would manufacture wars so they have a reason to go out and take black people from other parts of other nations and bring them in. Now, here's the thing. The problem that you're going to run across is that many people say things like, oh, well, these nations didn't exist. They're going to say things like the country of Nigeria, which was a prominent slave transportation center, didn't exist back then. But then we have something called successor liability, okay? Successor liability, or successor nation liability. That is a well-honed international law concept that says that the nation that inherits the property also inherits the debt. The nation that inherits the wealth also inherits the responsibilities from that predecessor. And so for years, when I would argue this, in my discussions with why Africans should pay foundational black Americans reparations, you had those those Pan-Africanists, those loyalists who said, well, those nations didn't exist. And now, as we move forward in 2025, you have the you have the African Union demanding reparations from European nations that didn't exist at that time. Nations like France, their border has changed. Germany was just a conglomerate of a bunch of different cobbled together mini states, for lack of a better word. And so these nations didn't even exist. Europe was a conglomerate of kingdoms. So how can we hold them responsible? Well, the same way we as foundational black Americans should be able to hold these African nations responsible. And I find it ironic, and now that we see that these African nations are saying, yeah, we want to get reparations for the redlining and the slavery and the slave trade and the punishment and the pain and the suffering that foundational black Americans had to endure. Don't you find it ironic? Where are the Pan-Africans now? Where are the people who were so against my idea? Because as far as I know, I'm the first person who came up with the idea after doing the research to say, you know what? These African nations need to be sued, because we can't sue the purchaser without suing the seller. You don't put if somebody takes stolen goods, you don't just punish the person who received the stolen goods, you punish the thief. And the truth is, Africans, they participated heavily into that. And you have so many black Americans, so many foundational black Americans who romanticize Africa. And now you're finding that these folk care very little about you. They are willing, they realize that African Americans, or when I say African Americans, I mean foundational black Americans, and that is those of us who can trace our roots to the United States of America, not just the slavery, but those who can trace it all the way back to before slavery even began. Now they want your money. They know that you have $1.9 million in spending power. They've taken it upon themselves to rename us Region 6. Region 6 of Africa. Many of you all have never even been to Africa. You wouldn't be able to tell me any of the 54 names of the African nations. They've never sent any boats here to get us, but now that there's some money to be stolen, now that there's some money to be confiscated, now that there's some money to be taken, now all of a sudden they want to be brother. How many of you all have heard of some of the mean, nasty things that Africans in general have said about us? They refer to us as stray cats, which is a term that means a kata is a cat with no home. They love to come over here and tell us we have no nation. They don't say that to Jamaicans. If a Jamaican says, I'm from Jamaica, nobody said, well, what tribe are you from? I'm Jamaican. That's their nationality. Same thing with the Trinidadians. I don't see people from Ghana and Nigeria and going to Trinidadians and saying, hey, where you from? I'm from Trinidad. Oh, what nation you from? I'm from Trinidad. That's my nation. But with African Americans or with foundational Black Americans, they have this insidious need to try to put us down by saying things like, oh, well, you don't know where you from. I'm from America. I'm an American. I'm a foundational Black American. And that sense of self-pride is what pushed me to look past any romanticized feelings that I may have developed about Africa and say, I have to put my people first. And that's what each one of my foundational Black American brothers and sisters have to do. At this point, you have to pick a side, because these African nations will come in and rob you. The trillions of dollars that we are owed in reparations we won't see a dime of it. They will embezzle it, they will take it, they will run with it. And those of us, the 35 million foundational Black Americans, because I know there's 45 million Black people in the United States, but at least 25% of them are first-generation Africans, and another, or first-generation Africans and second-generation Africans. They are not foundational Black Americans. They just got here after the immigration bill was passed in 1965, which allowed them to come over here. Before that, there was no African migration from the motherland, period. So what I'm trying to say, you all, it's time for everybody to lock arms. When I'm talking about foundational Black Americans, it's time for you to lock arms. They see nothing but an opportunity. They already sold us once. We already were an opportunity once for them to sell us into slavery. And now they want to take what's rightfully ours in the form of our reparations, something that we have had a slow, steady drumbeat going for nearly a century at this point. And now, I'm going to let you all get back to the reaction videos. I wanted to interject that. If you're enjoying this, make sure you like, subscribe to the channel. This is what we talk about over here on the Dennis Spurling podcast. Shout out to all my foundational Black American brothers and sisters. I appreciate you. I am 100% all the way on your side. I got friends from all over the diaspora, but when push comes to shove, I line up with my people. And I think each and every one of you all should recognize that at this point, we need to be unified in ourselves so that they can't steal from us again. I'll be back in a minute. Y'all check this out.
Shifting our focus now to Africa, where countries are uniting to demand reparations from their former colonizers. Yes, you heard that right. African leaders are meeting in Ethiopia this weekend to launch a new push for slavery and colonial reparations. As the African Union prepares for its 38th summit, the central topic will reportedly be a joint push for reparations. African leaders reportedly aim to define a unified vision for reparations, which includes financial compensation, a formal acknowledgement of historical wrongs, and comprehensive policy reforms. Well, the African Union's reparations agenda, adopted in 2023, seeks to address the lasting effects of slavery, as well as colonial exploitation of Africa's economic development and inequality. Beyond financial amends, the leaders are also expected to call for land restitution and the return of cultural artifacts that were looted during colonial rule. Discussions will also focus on combating economic inequality, racism, and Africa's marginalization in global affairs. But the push faces the risk of being stonewalled by former colonial powers, most of which have ruled out making amends for their historical wrongs. Many of Europe's leaders have opposed even talking about it. In Portugal, which enslaved more Africans than any other nation, far-right party Chega has proposed charging the president with treason for suggesting there might be a need for reparations. Then in Britain, right-wing populist Nigel Farage has said that Prime Minister Keir Starmer would be weak, and that is if he engaged in talks on this issue of reparations. Lastly, in France, President Emmanuel Macron has ruled out reparations, calling for reconciliation instead. With the former colonizers unwilling to engage in a debate, is reparation and the justice of that possible ever?
Black Americans. We need to talk about Africa and Pan-Africanism and how they're trying to undermine reparations for Black Americans and wage war on the chosen ones, Black Americans. Now listen, I fear it's much worse than we thought, than we could have ever imagined. In another video, I'm going to talk about how Africa has sent their wicked vampiric progeny to undermine Black Americans, but that's another video. So I took this passage from their website, African Unity, 6 Regions, USA. They are trying to have a money grab for reparations, trying to incorporate Black Americans into their shenanigans. No one asked them to do it. I took a passage off their website. I put it into my ChatGPT. You know my ChatGPT is called Cerebro. And Cerebro is going to break down the nuance, what they're really trying to do, their real motives. I'm going to come back at the end. Please stick around. So here's the passage I put in there. Analyze this passage from African Unity 6 Region, USA. What is it saying about reparations for Black Americans, and what is it trying to do?
All right, let's break this all the way down like only Cerebro can. Spiritual, strategic, and sharp. What this passage says, surface level. The African Unity 6th Region USA Foundation, AU6R USA, is part of a broader African diaspora initiative aiming to mobilize and unite people of African descent, especially in the US and Canada. Create collaboration and representation between the African diaspora and the African Union. Elect US-based reps to the African Union ECOSOC Assembly, aligning with the AU Constitutive Act Article 3U. Build sustainable partnerships between Africa and its diaspora for a wider renaissance. What it's trying to do, decoded. This is a Pan-African diplomatic integration effort, not a reparations-focused initiative. It's attempting to reframe Black Americans as part of the 6th region of Africa, which includes all African descendants living outside the continent. Get Black Americans to align politically and economically with African nations through AU programming. Encourage Black Americans to see themselves as stakeholders in Africa with an observer seat in African Union affairs. What it says about reparations for Black Americans, directly or indirectly, it doesn't mention reparations at all. Instead, it reframes identity and responsibility, avoids U.S. culpability for slavery, Jim Crow, redlining, etc., shifts the conversation from Black American justice claims against the U.S. to global Black unity, encourages Black Americans to reinvest their energy, time, and resources into Africa's renaissance, rather than focusing on reparative justice within the U.S. system. This framing has serious implications. If Black Americans are redefined as part of Africa, i.e. foreign, the U.S. could potentially deny lineage-based reparations because they'd be seen as part of a transnational identity, not a domestic harm group. It plays into what some Pan-African ideologues and internationalists do, decentralize Black American lineage and dilute the specificity of U.S. harm. What you should be watching for. Observer status equals no real power. You're watching decisions, not making them. There is no mention of chattel slavery, reparations, or Black American justice claims. The AU's Article 3Q is cited to validate this political merge, but that article doesn't guarantee economic justice, citizenship, or reparations. Final word from Cerebro. This is not a reparations movement for Black Americans. It's a Pan-African lobbying structure designed to channel our political energy away from the U.S. government and toward African developmental interests. You're being asked to invest, organize, and build, not to receive what you're owed. It's about inclusion without restitution. It's a spiritual bait and switch. You're African again. Now help rebuild Africa. But ain't nobody asked what's owed to the descendants of America's unpaid debt. If you want, I can pull up Article 3QQ from the AU Constitution or show you who funds this foundation, because something tells me there's more under the surface. Let me know if you want to dig. All right, let's dig deep and grace this with nuance, the real secret truths beneath the surface. WOB 1. Pan-African Strategy versus U.S. Reparations. A 2025 Year of Reparations by the AU. The African Union has formally declared 2025 its year of reparations, signaling a continental campaign for reparatory justice, focused on financial redress, cultural restitution, land, systemic reform, and healing. Cite Turn Search 2, 11 Turn Search 27. It's a Pan-African diplomatic movement, aligned closely with CARICOM and continental summits, Abuja 1993, Accra 2023, that resulted in the Global Reparation Fund and the launch of specialized institutions like the African Committee of Experts on Reparations. Cite Turn Search 2023. The approach is forward-looking, seeking not just acknowledgement, but structural transformation, healing through Ubuntu, racial justice, and international collaboration. Cite Turn Search 6N. B. Contrast with AU 6 Region USA. The passage about AU 6 Region USA makes zero mention of reparations. It speaks only of political mobilization, representation in AU institutions, and diaspora unity. That's a red flag. It's a strategic redirection of the diaspora's focus away from reparative justice in the U.S. system. It positions Black Americans as stakeholders in Africa's development, not claimants of justice at home. 2. Why that matters. Identity transformation. By reframing Black Americans as 6th region Africans, it's possible to sideline reparations locally. If you're no longer primarily a U.S. lineage group, what's the basis for U.S. reparative claims? Political diversion. Energy gets channeled into diaspora advocacy and Africa-U.S. partnerships, not reckoning with historic injustice in the U.S. Tokenistic engagement. Observer status in the AU gives a symbolic platform, not the power to demand or enforce reparations. Nash 3. AU's reparations framework outside the USA. Here's the broader context. Accra Declaration 2022 and Accra Proclamation 2023 shine a spotlight on reparations. Launching an international fund, global conferees, and campaigns cite Turn Search Torch for Turn Search 23. African institutions are reaching beyond symbolic gestures, pushing for legal mechanisms, material redress, return of art and land, and debt cancellation. Cite News 2, Turn Search 27.9. 4. Hidden agenda. What feels orchestrated here is the diaspora's gaze being realigned. From U.S.-centric accountability, like H.R. 40 Coates' work, demands for wealth equity, land, housing, education, toward Africa-centered partnership, aligning with AU mechanisms, ECOSOC representation, and continental renaissance projects. The clues you were searching for, no reparations language in the USA passage, means it's not a movement for justice in America. The AU and CARICOM are building real funds and policy paths, not lip service. The sixth region pitch is political social redirection, not institutional reparative justice for slavery and Jim Crow harms here. What you can do: 1. Hold the AU 6th Region USA accountable. Demand clarity. Does this group support reparations claims in the U.S., or are they deliberately avoiding them? 2. Stay connected to continental reparations mobilization. Tap into the Global Reparations Fund, the AU Committee of Experts, and follow legal movements emerging from Accra. 3. Center lived experience in lineage. Use Coates' model. Root reparations in lineage, policy, economic redress. Do not cede the narrative to identity cosmology alone. Conclusion. The AU 6th Region USA is not your reparations movement. It's a diaspora network that reframes Black Americans as Africans in service of Africa's development rather than claimants of justice at home. Meanwhile, the real reparations fight is happening on the continent through AU CARICOM frameworks, legal mechanisms, funding structures, and global solidarity. If you want access to the Global Reparation Fund, drafts of the Accra Proclamation, or how H.R. 40 aligns disjoints with this continental narrative, I got you.
Black Americans, keep in mind, this is from their website. Theme of the year, Reparations 2025. This article is February 15th, 2025 through December 31st, 2025. Where is the reparations? We didn't ask you to do that, Africa. We didn't ask you to speak on the behalf of Black Americans. Black Americans, you see that? Like we've been saying, they want to mobilize, use Black Americans to build up their economy in Africa. They sent their vampiric leech progeny here to undermine us. We're going to talk about that in another video. We're going to connect the dots, but listen. They want your power. That's all they've ever wanted. Did you hear the scheme that my Cerebro uncovered? They want you to build their land. It talked nothing about reparations in there. It's all a scheme. They want to trick you out of your birthright. It's the red herring. They don't like you delineating, because when you delineate, they can't cosplay and they can't benefit from leaning on these terms, African American and Black American. We've all been talking about this for years, months, and even weeks. This is why I don't play with a lot of Black immigrants. I don't care what they say. They could never gaslight us, because we are the intelligent ones. We do our due diligence. We do our research. We ask questions. Of course, Pan-Africanism can't work here. This is not Africa, and we don't have the same goal. They want you to move your voice into their politics, make you politically centered Africa, make your identity Africa, let go of the United States of America. We've been telling you this. I'm going to do another video. I don't want this to be too long. Put them on notice.
All right, y'all, I have to go dig up this African Union information, right? Because online they're talking about the African Union is also pushing for reparations, and they have included Black Americans. So I'm like, darn, what is this about, right? So I went and looked up the information, right? So the whole theme of this is called the African Union's Year of Reparations 2025, right? So basically, the way that it sounds like the African Union is trying to get in on the American descendants of slaves reparations call, right? And that's not what it is, right? So what this is a global infrastructure, architecture, and continental mobilization, right? So basically, this committee are from different parts of Africa, and they all have different agendas, right? So in summary, the continental theme is build political will and shared visions for 2025, right? They want to operationalize reparations via committees and funds. They want to amplify and globalize demands alongside CARICOM. They want to leverage judicial avenues and parliamentary backing. And yeah, and see, after I read all of this, I said, if you guys go to the AU's website, it's structured really, really good. Like it's laid out and it's structured properly. And this is the thing though. This is never going to work because it's not uniform. This is a Pan-African reparation movement. This is not a single, like here in America, descendants of slaves are fighting for reparations. The AU's movement is a global fight. Listen, we having a tough time getting reparations in America, right? So if you take that and put it on a global scale, good luck with that. All right. Good luck with that. Good luck convincing white people globally that Africans globally deserve reparations for this reason or that reason. I'm not saying they don't, right? But I'm just saying good luck getting them, because you can just look at the past and see that they don't care. Any argument that we bring up could be documented. It could be factual. They don't care, right? So here's the thing. There's too many players, right? And there's no united demand, right? So the AU is talking about collective trauma and cultural artifacts. CARICOM is asking for development aid and apologies. The U.S. activists are saying cut the check, cash payments, land, and laws. So everybody is pushing a different message in different ways with no real enforcement or strategic threat. That literally weakens the whole argument around reparations, because everybody wants something different. If we're going to get reparations on any level, the argument has to be uniform, right? Africa has to be on the same page as America and the Caribbean, so on and so forth. That's the only way this will work. So I just wanted to bring that to y'all attention, because the way that a lot of people are online talking about it, they're making it seem like the AU is trying to jump in on American reparations, and that's not what it is. So yeah, I just wanted to get that information out there so we can stop the confusion and maybe put something together that's really gonna work. So
what is the AU? So I just got the tea that Africans are trying to tap into our $1 trillion spending power in our reparations. Thanks to this content creator, she just taught me about the African Union and what their plans are. What is the AU 6th region? The African Union, AU, recognizes 5 geographic regions of Africa: North, South, East, West, and Central. The 6th region was created to include the global African diaspora, meaning you and I as so-called Black Americans, whether we agree or not. This designation has no voting rights, no land, no actual citizenship benefits, but it allows African leaders to claim us as an economic and political asset on the global stage. What are they doing right now? Creating Pan-African councils to speak on behalf of Black Americans, claiming us under the AU 6th region to get access to grants, global funding, and future reparations, pushing global campaigns for African unity, but not including our demands, history, or sovereignty. Meeting with U.S. leaders to form economic pipelines straight from our communities to African businesses and political elites. So why are they talking about reparations? Because if Black Americans win reparations, African institutions want to sit at the table as representatives of the African diaspora, claim partnership statuses in any international reparation funds, direct some of the resources to Africa instead of keeping it in U.S. communities. What do they want to do with the money? Attract investments into African economies, not Black American communities. They want us as Black Americans to buy land in Africa, invest in African tech startups, agriculture, tourism, and real estate, and fund African government projects and infrastructure, and we don't get anything out the deal. Nothing. We have to separate ourselves from the Africans. We have to stop calling ourselves African American and Black, and we got to stop spending our money in their businesses. Amaru Book Club has started a petition. This petition is to get Black and African American removed from the census and to get our own correct classification
on the census. We need in between 10 and 50K signatures. I'm going to put the link in the chat. Please copy and paste the link, sign the petition, and share the petition out to family and friends.
It's time to bring the subject of reparations firmly to the fore. Mr. President, we do not seek to shirk any responsibility for the problems we face that are of our own making. And it bears repeating that we are not craving for sympathy, and we do not want to be a scar on anybody's conscience. But we cannot, and the world should not pretend that the present-day economic and social conditions of Africa have nothing to do with the historical injustices that have fashioned the structures of the world. It is time to acknowledge openly that much of Europe and the United States have been built from the vast wealth harvested from the sweat, tears, blood, and horrors of the transatlantic slave trade and the centuries of colonial exploitation. Maybe we should also admit that it cannot be easy to build confident and prosperous societies from nations that for centuries have their natural resources looted and their peoples traded as commodities. For centuries, the world has been unwilling and unable to confront the realities of the consequences of the slave trade. But gradually, this is changing, and it is time to bring the subject of reparations firmly to the fore. Granted, the current generations are not the ones that engaged in the slave trade, but that grand inhuman enterprise was state-sponsored and deliberate, and its benefits are clearly interwoven with the present-day economic architecture of the nations that designed and executed it. Reparations must be paid for the slave trade. No amount of money will ever make up for the horrors, but it would make the point that evil was perpetrated, that millions of productive Africans were snatched from the embrace of our continent and put to work in the Americas and the Caribbean without compensation for their labor. If there are any hesitations in some minds about the paying of reparations, it is worth considering the fact that when slavery was abolished, the slave owners were compensated for the loss of the slaves because the human beings were labeled as property, deemed to be commodities. Surely, this is a matter that the world must confront and can no longer ignore. The African Union has authorized Ghana to hold a global conference on the issue in November in Accra. It is probably also the time to return to that vexed subject of illicit financial outflows out of the continent of Africa. I refer to the report of the panel chaired by the highly respected former South African President Thabo Mbeki on the illicit flow of funds from Africa, which states that Africa is losing annually more than 88 billion United States dollars through illicit financial outflows. Yes, those monies too must be returned to the continent. It is difficult to understand why the recipient countries are comfortable about retaining such funds and are happy to call those countries from whom the monies are taken as corrupt. I believe that a joint task force of the African Union Commission and the OECD Secretariat under the auspices of the United Nations should be charged to find ways of stopping the damaging outflows.
African Union and the Caribbean community have joined forces in an Accra proclamation for former slave-owning nations to get out their wallets and pay slavery reparations. Consider these words of Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo in his opening remarks at the summit. The entire period of slavery meant that our progress economically, culturally, and psychologically was stifled. There are legions of stories of families who were torn apart. You cannot quantify the effects of such tragedies, but they need to be recognized. What forms should this recognition take? Should Western nations apologize formally for the slavery sins of their ancestors? Should they pay reparations? How much? There are thousands of answers to this question. Here is one of those answers from the UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. Trying to unpick our history is not the right way forward, and is not something we will focus our energies on. Obviously, I disagree. Here is my answer. We must right the wrongs of the past so that we don't repeat those wrongs in future. Reparations are part of righting the wrongs of slavery. What's your answer?
Well. So, we are coming to the end, and we see that there are a lot of people who are very upset, alarmed at the fact that these African nations would have the unmitigated gall to think they're entitled to anything that is owed to foundational Black Americans. Keep in mind, these are people who just recently apologized for their participation in the slave trade, and now they want reparations. What is it? Okay, because see, first of all, my problem is nobody asked them. Nobody asked them for their help. Okay? What I find is when my Black foundational Black American brothers and sisters, when they travel to these countries, there's an infinite number, and with the attempt to try to become citizens, there's an infinite number of red tape. You have to have a certain amount of money. And we're generally not necessarily welcome. We're seen as financial opportunities. And that's largely what they see us as now. The funny thing is, all of the spokesperson, all of the people who apparently are speaking up on behalf of foundational Black Americans are themselves not foundational Black Americans. They are largely people of African descent, first-generation Africans, people who have different nationalities. I believe the head of Region 6, who speaks on behalf of foundational Black Americans, a woman named Blessing, is a Nigerian. So my question is, what gives her the right to negotiate with the American government and these European nations on behalf of foundational Black Americans for our reparations? Why is it that we are even allowing this? Why is it, what makes them even think they have standing to do that? We don't ask them to speak for us. They don't understand our experience. They don't have our lived experience. And just because you have Africans who have come to this country and have had to endure some of the microaggressions and racism that we've had to endure, there's nothing like Red Summer. They don't have relatives. They don't have the passed down generational trauma that we had to deal with coming out of slavery. Reconstruction, where we had an opportunity to build ourselves up, and then right after Reconstruction ended, all the land the foundational Black Americans had accumulated was simply taken from us, strong arm. There's a county in Georgia right now. It's currently the wealthiest county in Georgia. That land was owned by our foundational Black American forefathers and mothers, and white people literally showed up at their front door, not the government, just regular white people, pulled guns out and literally held pew-pews to their head and said, unless you turn this land over, we're going to unalive you and your entire family. They would bundle together sticks and put them on the front step. And that would let them know that they had a short time, 24 hours to get out of town. And if they didn't, the next time it would be dynamite. And so our people had to literally flee from those houses and that land. And then white people moved right in behind them and to this day, occupy houses and land rightfully owned and purchased by foundational Black Americans. Africans don't know anything about that. They don't understand that experience. You haven't heard that stories. Where would we be had there not been that unlawful taking by regular citizens of foundational Black American property after 1877 when Reconstruction ended? Where would we be? if in 1919 we didn't have Red Summer and we had all the property and the land that we were, and all the people, because see, along with stealing our land and property, hundreds and thousands of foundational black Americans were unalived by white mobs. Where would we be? Where would we be if after the civil rights movement and we had made so much progress in 1955 and 1965 in those decades, where would we be if COINTELPRO and the CIA and all of these different governmental organizations, having determined that we are a threat because we were kicking butt during that time period, making progress, damn near shut the country down, where would we be had they not come together and flooded the black community with dope and then instituted mass incarceration? Where would we be now? We would be a lot better off. And so Africans who just Johnny come here lately, you showed up in the 1980s, you know, you went to college, you said you're not like these foundations, you're not lazy, we work harder. Somebody type work hard in the chat room. Where will we be? You see, they don't know, they don't care. But now you see with the uptick in the ICE raids and whatnot, now they're getting a taste of what it's like to be profiled. Now they're seeing what we mean happens to people in this country. It's not so much about progress as far as black people are concerned. It's the anti-black racism and targeting that we have to endure in this country. And so nevertheless, Africans have no lived experience as a foundational black American. They don't. They just are simply mimicking and cosplaying and mimicking our accents, and they don't have the right to speak for us. And I think every foundational black American should be up. You should be aware of what's going on. You should be aware this is just another theft, another opportunity to try to use us and use our legacy to benefit. And what happens to the money, to the billions and billions of dollars that would be otherwise set aside for foundational black Americans? What do you think these African countries are going to do with it? What do you think is going to happen? Huh? Do you think they're going to build a Wakanda in Detroit? No, it's going to go back to Africa. It's going to be siphoned off amongst the upper elite and the dignitaries, the same people that benefited from selling us into slavery. And we'll never see a dollar of it. We'll never see a dime of it. And then when we go to the American government and say, hey, we want our reparations, they're going to point you at these African nations and say, you need to sue them because we gave them your money for distribution. And so we'll be right back to where I started off saying we need to sue Africa for our reparations. Make them pay, force them to realize that this is not a game, and they're going to need to compensate us for their part in the African slave trade. And if they choose to sue some of their European counterparts, be it Portugal, Denmark, England, France, okay, they're welcome to do that. But as far as we know, they're the number one culprit, because we would not have been able to be sold had they not manufactured these, their predecessors, nations, these kings and queens or whatever, had not manufactured these wars and then gathered us up and sold us off to these European slavers, okay? Nevertheless, I appreciate everybody. It's been a wonderful time here. I hope you guys appreciate these reactions. I hope you appreciate these words. I'm going to come back and I'm going to rehash my position that foundational black Americans need to sue these African nations for reparations, because clearly they're, and I don't want to hear anything any of you have to say about how those nations didn't exist, because I've already explained in this broadcast that the same European nations didn't exist. The same ones in particular, those kingdoms and whatnot, they didn't exist. They've been shifted around and moved, and the territory has been, if they didn't exist, okay, you shouldn't be asking them to sue those European nations for reparations. But if those countries can get sued or petitioned by African nations to be sued, then so can foundational black Americans petition these African nations under the theory of successor state liability. They should also have to pay us for what they owe us. Nevertheless, man, this is Uncle D live from the backyard, man. If you like what I'm doing back here, we'll keep this going. Like, share, subscribe, show me some love. And if you learn something, I should earn something. I shouldn't have to say that by now. But other than that, God bless you. I love you. And as I always say, this is Uncle D, and I am out.